My name is Ryan. My friend Kyle and I have taken our barroom conversations to the internet in the form of Michigan's most up-and-coming sports talk podcast. From baseball to Bigfoot, we cover it all. You're in for a treat because you have found the Turbo and 2K show. Crew, it's episode 26. 26 of these and hopefully about 26,000 more. And just want to give a big shout out to everyone that came out to the Motter outing yesterday. I think that Jerry said they had 91 golfers.
That's awesome.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's the biggest turnout turnout in the whole 10 years that they've been doing this. So really couldn't bitch about anything. I walked up, people thought my last name was Koepka. I don't know why.
Me neither. Because
Yeah.
I didn't see anything that looked like Koepka out there.
Well, I'm rusty. I'm rusty. You know, I didn't put the WD-40 on. Did not get the wire brushed to anything. But the weather was awesome.
Yes, it was.
The friends were awesome. The people were awesome. The golf course is in very good shape. And afterwards, Gibby cooked one hell of a hog, and the VFW was gracious enough to have us over there. So big thank you for everyone that showed up. Thank you for everyone that sponsored or put time in or volunteered towards it, because it was an amazing turnout, and they raised some pretty good money for the cause. So yeah, I tell you what, I had some very grand ideas before we stepped foot into the tee box at 16 when we started yesterday morning, and after about the first two holes, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was.
You could tell that me, you, and Christian were very rusty.
Yeah. Even Jake. I mean,
Jake started out hitting the ball really well.
Started off, but I guess he was the one that kind of carried us through that first 3 holes or so. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if he ever. I think he just packed his shit and went home after that.
Then he informed me, like, when we were done and just goofing around. He's like, "Yeah, man, I feel bad. I hit the ball like shit." He says, "But I normally don't drink when I golf."
Yeah.
I'm like, well, and you know what? That makes one hell of a difference. Mm-hmm. Now, I have a hard time playing golf while sober, or even having 1 or 2 beers. Not to say that I was trashed at the golf course by any means, but we may or may not have done a shot and shotgunned a beer for the first time in like 10 years for me. And you could tell it had been a while, because the little keyhole opening was like sucking a beer through a straw. And I remember it being a little bit harder to take in, or take to the face, if you will. So yeah, we pretty much tried everything to get us out of our little par funk that we had. But I have very good faith that if the 4 of us went out there next weekend, you know, our 1 under could be easily 10 under.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, we were hitting greens, we were hitting fairways. It's just when we were hitting the greens, we were 40 foot out and not 10 to 20.
Yeah, we never got it going as a team, really. I mean, it seemed like every single time the first guy hit a bad shot, we all hit bad shots.
Yep.
You know, and you had to be able to somebody has to pick us up, you know, and hit a good shot. But when we hit good shots, everybody hit good shots.
Everybody.
So it was like, there's no point ahead. We don't need 4 good shots. We just need 1 good shot. So that was the one thing. Some of that is, you know, playing these scrambles. It's hard sometimes to throw teams together, and that with guys that have never played together before. Yep. So you got to kind of, you know, play a few of these with each other and figure everything out. And all right, I'm done coming up with excuses. We just flat out sucked.
Yes, we did.
We sucked yesterday.
Yes, we did. But you know what? A good day at the golf course is a bad day anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, would I go out and do it again tomorrow? Absolutely, and I'd play with you 3 anytime.
Yes.
It was a
it was fun.
Yeah.
There's no question there.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And I think you and I figured out our problem. We just need to play more.
Absolutely.
We just need to play more. I mean, because there was times where you were hitting amazing. Mm-hmm. For me, I was hitting amazing, but then the next hole, or even the very next shot, and you know, I think that was part of our problem. Is we were struggling to string together 2 and 3 good shots.
Yep.
But ultimately, like I said, we had a lot of fun, and I'm just glad that the weather cooperated, and there was a lot of people out there that got to enjoy it with us. So that being said, let's do this trade deadline show. I've had some people reach out to me and be like, "Oh, Turb, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this?" So instead of replying to about 5 messages with the same goddamn thing, let's do it in one fell swoop. So, for those of you that don't know and you're living under a rock, was it July 31st at 4 o'clock, or was it August 1st? The trade deadline for the MLB, and you had to have your trades in, or at least in the process, by 4 o'clock. And the main difference between this year and in the years previous is there was the waiver period all through August. Just that the only rules was the people on your roster, for people to be eligible for the postseason, they have to be on your roster by the end of August. So that's I don't think that's changed, but this is a hard deadline. There is no waiver period anymore. So what your team's at is where it's at, and kind of the big names that moved were obviously Zach Greinke. Zach Greinke went from the Diamondbacks to the Astros. Aaron Sanchez also joined him from the Blue Jays to the Astros. Castellanos moved from the Tigers to the Cubs. And the Braves were the ones that got the closer, right?
Yep,
Green?
they got Green.
That's what I thought.
And they got the, is it Melanson from the Giants?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was... there's been one question mark with the Braves all season long. It's the bullpen, and they solidified that pretty good.
Yeah, there were fan upheavals saying that they wanted to sign Kimbrel instead of Dallas. So because of that need, and because obviously Kimbrel grew up and cut his teeth in Atlanta before he made his. I think they traded him to the Padres. And then the Padres traded him, and then the Red Sox had him for the last 3 or 4 years, and now he's with the Cubbies. So, but yeah, there weren't as many big names being moved. There were lots of moves, but I'll be the first one to admit, unless you're a standout member of a bullpen, I really don't know who you are.
Yeah,
it seemed like there was a lot more of those pieces move. There weren't. No, and then the Yasiel Puig and Trevor Bauer trade, that was another big one. But ultimately, I mean,
you mentioned the Stroman deal.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, Stroman was a big one. The Stroman one kind of gets lost just because it happened 3 days before the deadline. So
yeah, it wasn't. And then to even reach back further, the Red Sox got Cashner, which he hasn't pitched badly. He's been serviceable. Let's put it that way. But ultimately, that's where. Unfortunately, that's the entire Red Sox starting staff right now. But it just didn't seem like even the Zach Greinke deal came down towards the wire. It seemed like that wasn't going to go through. When I checked at 4 o'clock, Castellanos hadn't been moved yet.
No,
and then that really didn't process or get released until 4:05. So I looked at that and I'm like, oh. There was no doubt in my mind that Green was going to go.
Yeah, and I was sitting there thinking, how the hell do you not move Castellanos? I mean, like, it's very, very clear he's not coming back to Detroit. You have to at least get something, whether it's a water cooler, bag of sunflower seeds. You got to get something here in the end.
Some towels.
And come to find out, they did get just that, a bag of sunflower seeds and maybe some big league chew, but. That's the Tigers' way, I guess. And
Tigers fans, as you know, that Boyd did not go anywhere. So ultimately, when I checked that out and saw that at 4 o'clock Castellanos hasn't been moved, A, I was kind of confused. B, I was like, well, maybe they reached something where they're gonna extend him. And I looked even further, and I was like, oh shit, Boyd's still here too. So, but Boyd's just a number of starting pitchers that actually stayed put. There were rumors flying about Madison Bumgarner. Giants held on to him. Wheeler and Syndergaard for the Mets, they were rumored to go here, there, and everywhere, and they stayed. And ultimately, like I said, the the Mets traded for. They were buyers instead of sellers. And everyone thought, well, hell, they're just going to explode this and move on and see what happens from there. When ultimately they're like, oh, fuck you guys. Mm-hmm. We have a plan. Now, however, I don't think any of us besides the GM knows what the fuck that plan is. But is it something in the water in New York? I mean, the Jets are the Jets. They make questionable decisions all the time. The Knicks. Brooklyn finally got, I think they made 2 very good deals, bringing in Kyrie and KD. And then the Giants, with their draft history, what they're going to do with Eli, trading OBJ, and then now the Yankees are fine. The Yankees are the Yankees. They're always going to be the Yankees. Yeah. But wow, the Mets. I mean, if on paper, I mean, their pitching staff has never been an issue. Never been an issue. Their bullpen has never been the issue. It's been their position players. And now with Alonso playing first and one of their very nice prospects paying off, who else is there?
Yeah.
Who else is there? And
a shell of Robbie Cano.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks like he's 40 or 45 even. And his hands are slow. Everything about him is slow right now. And so I think it's going to be interesting because they're going to have to add a lot in the off season now, just to be relevant. If you look at the teams in the AL East or the NL East, excuse me, that's a tough fucking division. Mm-hmm. It's a tough division. You got the Braves on the rise, the Phillies are even on the rise. You got the Mets. Who else? The Marlins, which Derek Jeter's got that team. And I read an article the other day. And I can't remember. It was on LinkedIn, and it was a Detroit sports writer. And I forgive you. Please forgive me if I don't remember your name. But yeah, if you look at Marcell Ozuna, all of the players that DJ is traded away, that would be one hell of a roster right now. Mm-hmm. Giancarlo, which I mean the Yankees basically stole. Yeah. The Brewers basically stole Christian Yelich. And they pretty much got Tigers deals for all of that. I'm pretty sure for like the big 4 trades that DJ's made, they might have like a case of sunflower seeds and maybe a cooler full of Gatorade. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, for what they're doing and how they're doing it, I think you can scratch your head all you want to, because, and if this is the continuation, if it bombs, then I guess kind of the best part is that as a backup plan, if this does bomb, you have a whole. I mean, you've got Alonso, all the pitchers. Mm-hmm. Where if you did want to blow this up, you could get a lot of good prospects. In return. And
that's kind of the thing that I'm thinking or leaning towards what they're doing. I think they're kind of loading up on some pitching to eventually turn that for some bats.
You're gonna have to.
That's really the only thing I can think of. You still have another year of Stroman, mm-hmm. so you might be able to flip him and turn him into something.
I did hear rumors that there was one plan in place to package Stroman and Syndergaard together, or Wheeler together, to get an ultimate haul instead of just piece by piece. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that didn't happen because they're all there. Yeah,
and that's when I saw this trade go through, and being that it was 3 or 4 days before deadline, I really thought there was going to be a good chance that Stroman was going to get flipped and they were going to deal him again. But that's not the case, and to me, some of these teams, even some of these teams as sellers not doing a whole lot, and some of these teams even as buyers not doing a whole lot, makes me tend to believe that this offseason is going to be a pretty busy one. I think some teams are going to be moving some players this offseason and making some trades.
And like you and I were talking before we hit record, it's I think it's with the names that stayed and the teams that stood pat, I think a lot more teams are valuing their prospects a lot higher than what they were 5-10 years ago. And I don't think that, and because of those prospects, I don't think we're going to see another team be like the Steinbrenner Yankees, where it just ship off prospects and eat a shit ton of payroll. Mm-hmm. And ultimately payroll, I think that's one of the reasons why the Yankees and Red Sox stayed where they were. And the Dodgers as well. So that's kind of my kind of Cliff Notes version of what happened. So let's kind of dive in a little bit deeper. And as far as the sellers were concerned, how do you think the big ones fared? I mean, we look at obviously, the sellers ultimately. I mean, you and I touched on this before we went live. Was, you know, the Tigers really didn't get a whole lot in return for the Castellanos trade, but he's a rental.
Yeah,
you know, it would be different if he had like another year or two on his contract. I'm sure the price would have went up a little more.
Yeah, that's what you look at with Shane Green. Shane Green still has another year in his contract. The deal that they pulled off with the Braves, as far as bringing Wentz, the starting pitcher, gives them, you know, Tigers are obviously loaded with starting pitching coming up. What they're not loaded, they don't have very many lefties coming up. Wentz gives them a lefty coming in. That's going to join in with that rotation. The Braves farm system pitching wise is flat out loaded. So
their whole farm system's loaded.
You know, for him to be the 7th ranked prospect with the Braves and pitching, a lot of that is if he joins a different ball club, he's probably ranked higher than that.
Yeah.
He's not having a great season this year, but I mean, not bad. And then with the Dimitri kid, gives him an outfielder. He's athletic. He can play the field better than Christian Stewart is my first one I throw out there for the Tigers, who really hasn't swung the bat worth a shit all year and plays horrendous defense. So, I mean, with that trade, I look at that and I'm not. I mean, it's not eye popping, but that's kind of the way the market went this year. Is teams are really not willing to give up their top end prospects. They're more willing to give up maybe 2 or 3 middle of the road players over giving up one really good prospect. Teams just don't want to do it. So, to me, when you look at a so-called seller, but at the same time, I really can't call them a seller after what they did. But everybody wants to say that the Houston Astros won the trade deadline, and deservedly so. I mean, you pull out Greinke to join with Verlander and what Garrett Cole's doing this year. But the team that kind of under the radar pulled something off that I think is really scary is Cleveland Indians. You trade Bauer, and everybody wants to think, oh, you're selling because you're getting rid of Bauer. And Bauer is a great pitcher. It's pretty easy, and they've to see that they were not going to have the money to be able to sign him. I know he's got another year arbitration, but hit the amount that they were going to have to pay him is going to be significant. And instead, they flipped that for 2 bats that are, the Reyes kid from the Padres. I think he got 26, 27 home runs right now this season. A young bat. I mean, this is his first go around. Being a big leaguer all season long. So you throw that in the lineup, and then you bring Yasiel Puig, who we know he acts like a complete jackass on the field all the time, but the guy's got some freaking power, and he is a pretty good baseball player.
Probably has one of the better arms still in the game.
Yes, and throw that in with that lineup, and Cleveland's pitching is already pretty solid. To me, Cleveland jumped the Minnesota Twins, and I think Cleveland goes on to win the AL Central now this season after making that deal.
You heard it here first, folks.
And the Twins kind of just
stayed pat.
I think they made one move for the pitcher that they got slips my mind, so that tells me it's not really that big of a deal. But to me, I mean, they are the team that they might hit it better than anybody in baseball, with the exception of maybe the Yankees, but they do nothing at the deadline. Like, if I'm so frustrated if I'm a fan of that team, because why are you not jumping on the opportunity to bring in Bumgarner and putting him in that staff, or a Matt Boyd, or jumping on Stroman and bringing him into that? Why are you not doing that? You have so many pieces in the minors to be able to flip that trade, but they chose not to do it. For a team that hasn't won in years,
and here's your window.
Here's your chance. Yeah. Your team is absolutely loaded, and you have guys in your lineup that if you think that they're going to keep hitting for years and years, the way that they're hitting this year, it's not going to happen.
No.
I think it's been a fluke year for them, and they're hitting great. This is the time to buy on and try to win one.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately do what the Astros did, and not only this year but 2 years ago, and even maybe that kind of goes to our point, Kyle, is that it's not just when you're a seller looking at who you're who you want from another team. When you're a buyer or just standing pat, how much do you value your pieces, your prospects? So ultimately that's why we saw some of the big teams, the teams that are aside from the Astros, just be like, no, we're good. We're good. And a lot of folks are saying, well, with this, Greinke deal, maybe it's, the big team stood pat because they're like, we can't compete with that. I'll argue that because that trade didn't go through till later in the day. And I'm not sure how much GMs talk or whatever. I'm sure it was maybe rumored, but ultimately, I mean, yeah, if you get Bumgarner, he would be a rental this year, right?
Yep.
So, but some of the other guys that you mentioned have serviceable contracts, so it wouldn't be just for this year; it'd be for next year.
But I mean, the thing with the Twins is like, what are you? You're 3 games back in the American League of being in first place in the American League. You're right there on the line. You add an arm like Bumgarner, you can't tell me that if you add an arm like that they can't compete with the Yankees in the playoffs to get them into the World Series.
I agree.
Or they can't compete with the Astros. They can, because they can hit.
Yeah.
They can hit the ball. They are hitting the ball this year better than I think anybody in baseball. But their pitching, especially starting pitching, there's question marks there.
Yeah. And I think Dombrowski was kind of doing the same thing. It's like, well, maybe probably Cashman at the Yankees be like, you know what? Our offense is good enough to overcome shaky starting pitching. And now the one separator from all of them is the Boston's bullpen's horrible.
Yeah.
Granted, they are, goddamn, what's his name? The kid they re-signed. I can see his face, but they're, instead of moving him back into the rotation, they're putting him in the bullpen, which he's the one that kind of was the long man and part of the closer last year. I'm sure his name will pop in my head here in a second.
Eovaldi?
Yeah, Nathan Eovaldi. Yep. And, they're bringing him back slowly but surely because I think he's only pitched 3 games this year. And I think he's had 3 or 4 chances in the bullpen. So maybe he did great things in the bullpen last year. And if that's your... ultimately, if that's your answer for a closer, that's an expensive fucking closer.
Yeah.
Starting pitcher money for a closer. But all right, so let's dive into the buyers. And I chose the Astros to win the World Series before the season. I'm gonna keep riding that top to bottom, starting. And I'm even saying before these their trade deadline activity. To me, their starting pitching, top notch. Their position players, top notch. Their bullpen, not as good as the Yankees, but still very good. The way they matched up with the Red Sox, with the Yankees, with the Twins, ultimately, I would, especially in a 7-game series, I don't think there's any way any of those teams would beat the Astros before. Now they go out and they get Zach Greinke and Aaron Sanchez and another. Was it a bullpen piece or was it a? I know there was one other. I want to say it was a bullpen piece. So ultimately, they've. Yeah, if you're a betting man, which a lot of us are, I think it'd be smart to put money on them.
Yeah, and going back to the beginning of the season, I picked Dodgers to win it all over the Yankees. Now, if I want to go back and switch that because I don't see Houston just totally blew up the whole season at the deadline by pulling Greinke over. I mean, that is the move of the year. That is the move of the deadline. I mean, they went from already being maybe the best team in baseball to they are the best team in baseball.
It was, in my opinion, it was equivalent to their move to get Verlander.
Yes. Yeah.
And what's something, and as you know, we've talked about this other podcast, the starting nine. Dallas Braden brought up a very good point that if you look at the top, you know, the three studs now, you got Verlander, Cole, and now Greinke. None of them are homegrown. They're all acquired via trade. I mean, granted, the Derek Cole was in between seasons and not at the trade deadline. And there's very few teams that can say that. I mean, there's usually like one homegrown guy. You know, even the Red Sox have Eduardo Rodriguez. The Yankees have a couple of them now. Mm-hmm. So, and even the Dodgers, they have, you know, Ryu. They have Kershaw. So it's rather unique what they're doing. Yeah. And what I took the most away from Dallas's conversation with this was, he's like, I don't know how they're doing it, but the Astros not only put out the best product they can for their top MLB team, they condition and train and get their prospects ready quicker, more effectively, and get them major league ready quicker than any other team. So when they can make a deal like this, they have not one, but probably 12 pieces that any GM would be like, okay. Yeah. Okay. And since we're talking prospects, like you said, all these big deals they've done, they've kept their top prospect.
Yeah. Their top two. Yeah. They've been able to keep their top two. And one of the two has got, 15, 20 home runs since his call-up so far this year. I mean, so, and even with this Greinke deal, yes, it makes them, to me, in my opinion, the best team right now. But it sets them up for next year too. I think everybody knows that Garrett Cole is going to have it's going to be a contract year for him, and he's going to be the one that it's going to drag out. We're going to see how much money somebody's willing to pay him. There's a good chance he's going to win the Cy Young, and that's going to help his case for. I mean, the guy's going to get paid. Yes. So if Houston can't bring him back, they still got two really, really good pitchers up front. Because they bring over Greinke, and yeah, they got rid of 3 pretty solid prospects in that deal, and maybe 4, but they still were able to keep their top guy, and they got rid of all that, and now you have Greinke. He'll be there next season. Yep. So will Aaron Sanchez. Yes. So they've set themselves up to be really good next year, and there's a chance that they might go out and pay Garrett Cole. Yeah. Who knows? It would be a stretch, but it's definitely a possibility, and. In that same conversation, Dallas Braden was saying that, and I really hadn't even thought about it, but after listening to it, I totally agree that he's more excited about the Sanchez acquisition than the Zach Greinke acquisition. And Greinke is older. You know, I think they said he's 36. Obviously a lot more expensive, even though the Diamondbacks did take on a lot of the remaining contract. But the knock on Sanchez has always been these little ticky-tack injuries. 9 times out of 10, it's been blisters. And Tigers fans, if you remember, way early in his career, Verlander had blister issues. And what Dallas was saying, he's like, I don't know what chamber they put these players in the locker room in Houston, but whatever chamber they put him in, set the timer for 10 minutes and the fucker comes out 10 times better than what he was. He's like, there's no doubt in my mind that Aaron Sanchez is going to be a sponge. How does Verlander train? What does he do in between starts? Same with Garrett Cole. Same with Zach Greinke, because he's ultimately had to be like a 1A to Stroman in Toronto. And this is not a knock on Stroman by any means, but in my opinion, he's not up there. Oh, absolutely not. With the Verlanders, with the Coles, on how they do their day to day. And one other knock on Stroman is that they've said that there's not a big distinction between his curveball and his slider, which that was JV early on. He always had that power slider and then tried to add the curveball, and it wasn't until probably his mid-career point where he found that. And very few pitchers can do a 12-6 curve and throw that hard. Yeah. I mean, you look at like the Barry Zitos of years past. Zito was throwing 88 to 90. Yeah. Not
100 in the 8th inning.
Yeah.
And still pop that off.
Yeah.
So
that was so crazy to me with Verlander was and I talked about it when Denny was here with us. He would start games off throwing 93, 94, and for 5-6 innings of that, and then normally when guys are getting tired or hitting that 100 pitch count, and they're supposed to start slowing down or coming out of the game, he amped it up to triple digits.
He downshifts to 4th
and just cut your fucking throat and ended the game. I mean, it was watching what he was doing a couple years ago with Detroit, especially you look at the MVP season of his. It was unbelievable what he was doing.
Yep.
And he's 34, 35 years old now and still doing it. So it's like I haven't seen the guy slow down yet.
In my opinion, he's probably better today than what he's been aside from that MVP season, probably his whole career.
Yeah.
He's more consistent. And again, everyone can say, "Oh, he was dogging it. He didn't want to play for Detroit." That's false.
Yeah, it's not.
That's false.
I mean, the way it works is when you're on a good team and there's a good thing going, and you have a lot of one thing he has going for him right now, and Houston, there's a lot of young energy there. A lot of really, really good baseball players that are young, and for him being kind of the veteran of that. I think those young kids keep him young.
Yeah.
And that's what's bringing the best out of him. And you look back in his best times in Detroit. That's when those guys, all them guys that, kind of those long overpaid contracts that are hurting Detroit now. Well, back when Verlander was throwing like that, that's when all those guys were playing good ball too. There's a reason why those guys got fucking paid.
And it's got to be easier to feed off that.
Yes, when you got Miguel Cabrera hitting with the Triple Crown, that makes you, I'm going to step my shit up too because I'm still the face of Detroit.
But and I think half of it has to do with that. The other half is just the culture and how the Astros can take a talent and improve it in a very short amount of time. So, and that gets back to the Aaron Sanchez, and I'm right there with Dallas. I think ultimately he could be better than Garrett Cole. Could. I'm not saying he is. Could. But yeah, I'm excited because, and kind of getting back to your point about Stroman, where you wanted to see him play in big games, games that mattered. I'm excited to watch because Houston's going to be on ESPN and every chance they get. And he was kind of tucked away back in Toronto, where up until these young kids started making their debuts, it was pretty much after Joey Bats left and that Crush show, and since then Donaldson's gone, Encarnacion, those big three.
At the same time, that's when they brought David Price over and had him pitching, and Tulowitzki was healthy for a little bit there, and
they haven't been relevant since then. So it's got to be refreshing, for a player to do that. Even going back to when Verlander was shipped away. It's got to be refreshing. It's a new start. It's a change of pace, change of scenery, change of hierarchy throughout everything. And some players do very well with it. Some players don't. I'm glad to see that there really isn't one knock that you can bring up against Houston.
No.
I mean, when they brought over the closer, there was some turmoil around that. But that being said, you haven't heard his name since. So,
but just the way that they handled this deadline, and you get Aaron Sanchez, and I'm with you on that. I'm excited about that. I think he's got a ton of potential, but I'm still stuck on the Greinke,
right?
Because Greinke is a fucking stud. I mean, there's nothing. He's a stud, and they might be able to use the guy as a fucking DH now too, because
it's very true.
He's one of those pitchers that can flat out hit.
Very true. And I'm the thing I'm most excited about is for Houston to see that 56-mile-an-hour curveball he busts out.
But I mean, they waited until basically. It was after the deadline when this deal was finalized and everything. They had it in the works, but they waited that long, and in that time, I think by them waiting and not doing anything, it kind of made the Yankees sit on their hands and the Dodgers sit on their hands. And so the two teams that I think can compete with them the best didn't do a damn thing. The Yankees, they needed to add an arm. To me, they needed to add a starting pitcher to make themselves, true World Series contenders, and they didn't do it. And then you go to the Dodgers, and their starting pitching has been great, but their bullpen has been pretty shaky. Maybe not the ninth inning. I think the ninth inning, with
I hate Kelly Jansen.
He gets it done. But let's just be. I mean, the seventh and eighth,
bridging it there has
been a problem. I mean, how do you not go and jump on that Shane Green deal, or how do you? Or after Shane Green went, I thought for sure Felipe there from the Pirates was going to end up as a Dodger, and he doesn't get moved. And I'm thinking to myself, what are the Dodgers doing? You guys have got to the World Series 2 years in a row, and you failed, and now this is your chance here. This is the best team that you've had, and you didn't do anything.
Top to bottom, you are very, very right.
You have one thing in your entire team that is not very good, and that is your bullpen. And you did not address that whatsoever.
And ultimately, where they're lacking, in my opinion, is one of the cheaper and easiest things to fill. It's not like you're trying to trade for a top line starter.
I mean, you see what the Tigers got for Shane Green. You see what some of these other teams, they didn't get a whole lot.
No.
So how do the Dodgers not make that deal? I know the Pirates were probably asking for a lot out of the. What was it? Felipe Rivera, is that his name? I keep on calling him Felipe, but I know the Pirates were asking for a lot off of him, but you have a loaded farm system. Get the deal done. I mean, you guys the Dodgers of anybody should have the most motivation to want to win because they've been so close, and when they haven't got it done. So to sit on your hands and not do anything, come on. And
ultimately too, it's you look at it. The window for Kershaw is closing. For a guy that has been the face of your organization for how many years? He's not as dominant, but still, probably most other teams is a number one.
Yeah.
And to cash in on this season out of nowhere with Ryu.
Yeah, and I mean that's the big knock with the Tigers, and people are saying, "Oh, the Tigers aren't going to be able to move Matt Boyd for the price that they're asking because Matt Boyd hasn't done it, Ryu hasn't done shit until this year either. Yep. Now he's throwing like a Cy Young this year. Do you think it's going to keep dragging on? Because I don't.
No.
Do I think he's still going to be a solid pitcher? Yes. Do I think he's got another Cy Young in his back pocket? No.
No. The stars have aligned for him, and I mean, again, getting back to prospects, you have a lot of those kids on the Dodgers are still. They haven't hit their first deal yet, and how many are you going to be able to keep? Same with the Cubs. I mean, and the Astros. How many of these dudes are they going to be able to keep? The only difference is the Astros did the big fuck you and threw their dick out on the table, and they're like, "What else? What else you want? What else you want?" So, Mr. 2Ks. I think we've kind of hinted on it, but who are your top three? Who are the three winners? Who in your mind scored the best? The top three teams.
Oh, Houston number one. I really think I'm sticking with Cleveland. Number two, just because of losing Bauer it's a big deal, but I think they're starting pitching. They're going to be fine. Francona's always been able to work a pitching staff.
Kluber's not even back yet.
Yes, so. And the thing for me with Cleveland is their batting lineup was a little bit but now I think they got a couple pretty big boppers in there to mix in, and that team is scary to me. I think they're going to go on to win the AL Central and pass the Twins, who did nothing. And then probably my number three, I got to go with my hometown guy. What was it last week when I was talking so much about Castellanos? To me, the Cubs kind of just not having to get rid of anything, and I get it. He's a rental player, but I think the Cubs I think the Cubs are the best team in the Central, in the NL Central, and I think adding that bat, a little bit of versatility in the outfield, could probably play some third base or maybe first base in a pinch.
If need be.
And if there's one thing that the Cubs really struggle with, it's hitting left-handed pitching. And Castellanos is probably one of the best hitters in baseball as far as against left-handed pitching. So, to me, that one was kind of not really talked about a whole lot, but could be a pretty big deal come postseason play.
And I agree with all three. I mean, you can't you can't fault there's everything the Astros did was bulletproof. I mean, you can't argue that any one of those acquisitions were bad or were questionable or why did you do that? Mm-hmm. The Indians, I agree with that. And I did post a meme of Serrano sitting there, gripping his bat, and it says, "Relax, Cleveland." The last time a Cuban was there, look, it ended up pretty good. So,
and with that Cleveland deal, I really thought if you look at that trade for all three of those teams, I really thought that was a really good trade for all three teams. Mm-hmm. I think the Cincinnati Reds are really up and coming and could be a good team. And Trevor Bauer to kind of be that, top of the rotation guy to mix him in there with Santana, who they have there now. That could be a team to watch out for next year, yep. Kind of as a dark horse. The Padres, you know what they got coming up as far as with the up and coming young players, and they have the best farm team in all of baseball. Yep. And now you added Taylor Trammell, who was the Cincinnati Reds' top farm prospect, mm-hmm. and you added him and then throw him into the already loaded farm system of the Padres, and there's a lot of good things on the horizon coming for the Padres. San
Diego's doing a lot of things under the radar, and I don't know if it's just because they're West Coast and we're all East Coast bias mm-hmm. over here, but they're doing it quietly. And yes, I know the Manny Machado signing was not quiet at all.
No.
But everything else besides that
has been very quiet, and let me tell you,
very quiet and very, very strategic.
What they're doing and how they're building this reminds me a lot of how Houston built theirs up, because it's hard now because of all the success that Houston's had lately to go back 7 or 8 years and look at all those years where they were the worst team in baseball for yes. years and years and years. But nobody ever talked about them, what they did as far as building this all up. And mm-hmm. all of a sudden, they just blew it up like, here we are, and they're instantly the best team in baseball.
And that goes to show you, too, when ownership has the same game plan as the GM, everyone's on the same fucking page, mm-hmm. and the ownership gives the GM the green light to be the worst team in baseball for 3 or 4 years straight because they have a plan. Mm-hmm. It's I guarantee if you're an Astros fan going through those days, kind of resembles what Detroit's going through right now. And there's a lot of people that knock Al Avila for a lot of shit, but maybe that's the plan. We don't know the plan. The plan is, the owners and Avila, and there was nothing that they could do at this trade deadline or are going to do in the off season that's going to make them playoff ready for next year.
No. And the thing with Avila, I think a lot of Detroit fans and a lot of people I saw some comments on there. On the Turbo and 2K's page with the Castellanos trade, I saw some comments and I mean, I get it. You're not happy with what the Tigers are putting on the field. You're not happy with what you're watching, and everybody thinks that Avila is just awful at his job. Give him some time. Let him, yes. 2 or 3 years from now, if the system hasn't gotten any better and we don't have anybody, panning out, then you can say, you know what, Avila, you did your thing. Yes. We need to go on with somebody else. But he jumped into a job where he had, right off the bat, when he jumped into it, he had to start selling because of all the bad contracts that Dombrowski got him into mm-hmm. and Illich. And Dombrowski did it because he was trying to win one for Illich. Yep. Dombrowski is a very good GM. There's no arguing that. He's a very aggressive GM. He's going to get rid of everything in the farm to try to make sure that his MLB team is the best possible team he can put on the field. And if that means getting rid of your top 3 or 4 prospects, he's going to do it. Yep. So he set them up in a really, really bad spot when Avila takes over this. And he's the most hated guy in Detroit now because he's the one that's dumping all these guys out of there and getting a bunch of guys that you've never even heard of.
Right. But yes, when you say if we were to fast forward 3 or 4 years from now, and they're still in the same spot, then yes, something needs to change.
Then we can get on the Turbo and 2K's page and talk about how much Avila sucks and he's an idiot, because then I'll agree. But right now, he hasn't had enough work, to see what the plan is and see how it pans out. It just hasn't been enough.
No, and he like you said, he was put in probably the worst position as a GM, probably that I can ever remember. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that thought, Dombrowski just write a check. But that's what Ilitch said to do. Mm-hmm. Write the checks, get these fuckers over here, get me a World Series. That was their plan. And when they were doing it and it was working, you didn't hear anybody bitch. Yeah. So
and the thing about it is it's so hard with Major League Baseball trades, and because you're normally trading really, really good and proven for top end prospects that are not proven. Exactly. You look at Dombrowski's deal, and you bring in Miguel Cabrera, who was one of the best hitters of our time, and they brought in Dontrelle Willis, who, yeah, I know it didn't pan out in Detroit, but he was one of the best pitchers in baseball at that time. And what did the Tigers give up for that? Andrew Miller, who's pitched in the bullpen, who's been a very good bullpen pitcher, but
yes,
if somebody's going to offer me the best bullpen pitcher for Miguel Cabrera, I'm going to take that trade all day long.
And Cameron Maybin.
And Cameron Maybin being the next one, and Cameron Maybin's been a serviceable role player for his career.
Yeah,
but
even back with the Tigers again. Yeah,
if you go back on that trade, I can guarantee you the Marlins are saying, we fucked up with that one, because Andrew Miller has never really pitched any good time with the Marlins. He didn't start pitching really well until he got out of there.
Yep.
I look at kind of Cleveland, where he kind of had his coming out party, and then even with Cameron Maybin, his time in Miami really wasn't anything. Or at the time it was Florida. It was before the Miami time, but he never really had his coming out until you get out of that, and then with the Padres he started to play some decent baseball. Then came back to Detroit and played decent baseball for them for a while.
Probably the best baseball of his career when he came back. And now, which trade was it that Scherzer was kind of the throw-in? Because he was out of the bullpen when they got him. They got him from...
So that was the Didi... No, Didi was... that was for Shane Green. Oh, man.
Because they got him and the Schlereth kid. And if we can't remember who they were trading...
Yeah.
And then they get probably one of the top NL pitchers, one of the most dominant pitchers the past 5 years. That was he was a throw-in. He was a throw-in, and he was a bullpen arm.
Yeah.
So the past trades, I mean, again,
you got me looking these up now, because now I'm all curious.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll kind of round out the Cleveland and Chicago talk here, and let's go to the Chicago one first, because Dave Brown was very confused as why the Cubs reached out and did pull the trigger on Castellanos. And my response is this: if you could put him into either right field, and we're talking Castellanos here, right field or left field, let's be perfectly honest, Schwarber is one of the most inconsistent hitters I've ever seen. He'll have a week where he goes off and hits 5 home runs, then he won't hit another home run for 2 weeks. And I, as a Cubs fan, I would much prefer the athleticism that Castellanos brings over Schwarber in the outfield. I think because if the Cubs can, and if Castellanos stays there next year, man, you're looking at an easy 30 home run kid. All those, Castellanos was the one that was upset and bitching about the dimensions at Comerica, saying that it was ridiculous.
It is. People were knocking him for making that comment, and I'm like, the guy's fucking right.
Yeah.
Center field in Comerica Park is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Shave that off by about 20 fucking feet and make it like every other field.
But you put him in the mix for a whole season, playing 81 games in Wrigley with the wind blowing out 90% of the time. Those balls that are going to the warning track or before the warning track in Comerica are going to fly out or go in the basket. So, give me Castellanos, who's hitting 280, 290. May not have the flash and the pop that Schwarber has, but give me something that's more consistent, more athletic.
Yeah.
And can play, probably, I would say they're probably going to work him into right field. Probably move Hayward to center, because even as great of a defensively Almora Jr. is, he's not hitting worth a shit.
Mm-mm.
And then maybe you can keep Schwarber in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, you're right. It gives the Cubs a lot more flexibility, a lot more lineup flexibility, and because their outfield is not great. I mean, defensively, Jason Hayward's still one of the best outfielders, and he's had kind of a resurgent year at the plate, so might as well ride that. And ultimately, they didn't have to give up a whole lot to get him.
No.
So, and you touched on how he hits, left-handed pitching better than most everybody, and from the right side, which is kind of unique.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of unique. So, but yeah, that was my top three. And one thing that I did want to bring up, and I hate that I keep stealing Dallas Braden's mojo here, but I was thinking the same thing. It's like, you know what? When you look back in baseball history and you look at dominant starting pitching, and probably the one that comes to mind the quickest is the 90s Braves. That pitching staff throughout the whole year was almost unhittable. Mm-hmm. Only one World Series. So I think ultimately you look at the way everything is set up, where a lot of folks are just kind of throwing in the towel and saying, you know what, here's another one for Houston. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. As there's always a chance, I guess. And if I had to bet a month's paycheck on it, yes, I'm taking the Astros all day. But just it can happen. Just because you have that, by far, 1, 2, 3, even 4 punch, doesn't necessarily win you. So keep hanging out. You can never write off the Yankees, and that fucking sickens me. But yeah, you can't write them off. And they're especially in the AL. I mean, I think it's kind of this way in both leagues. You have your creme de la creme at the top, and then there's everybody else. But any teams in that creme de la creme can beat each other bloody in a series, and even if you played a 15-game series, it would be 8-7. So, but yeah, and then just to kind of wrap up the baseball talk. I mean, the big name teams that stood pat, and I think with the Yankees and Red Sox especially, the reason they stayed pat is they didn't want to go over that luxury tax. So, do each of them have very, very vast voids? Yes. Do the Dodgers have a vast void? Yes. Getting back to what we talked about, that's in my eyes the most inexpensive fix out of anything. And is Severino going to come back for the Yankees? And what is he going to do? Where are they going to put him? All right, you're going to put him in the bullpen. That's fine. That doesn't fix anything. That doesn't fix anything. Nathan Eovaldi going to the bullpen. Maybe. Yeah. We don't know. We don't know.
A team that we didn't talk about, and I wish I would have mentioned them because they were buyers. They were buyers a little bit. Are the Braves? Yeah. I mean, they solidify the back end of their bullpen by bringing in Green and Melanson, and they're kind of in the same boat as the Dodgers. That's really their big weakness was their bullpen.
I didn't even know Mark Melanson was still in the league. By the way.
Yeah, and he's not pitching like he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he's solid, and it gives him a solid arm there. And Shane Green's having the year of his career, I still think the Braves are maybe a year away. Very, very good, a lot of talent there.
It wouldn't shock me if it would not shock me if they beat the Dodgers in a 7-game series. Would I expect walking into that the Dodgers to win? Yes, but would it shock me? Absolutely not.
No. And so that right there tells you they're there. I'm thinking they're still a year away because they're young. They're just young, but they make both these trades to kind of solidify the bullpen. They don't give up a whole lot, and both Green and Melanson will be pitching for them next year because either one of them are rentals. So to me, that's a good deal for them to not have, and they didn't get rid of. They're another very, very good farm system. and they didn't have to give up any of those top guys.
And they ultimately didn't have to pay a top dollar for Craig Kimbrell.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
But yeah, no, you're very, very right, very right. And so yeah, that's our.
So before we get,
yeah.
I looked up that trade for the Scherzer deal back then, and so in this trade, the Tigers received Scherzer, Daniel Schlereth, Phil Koch, and Austin Jackson.
That was it. Yep.
And Phil Koch, he pitched pretty well for the Tigers there for a little bit of time. And then Austin Jackson, very solid center fielder for him. That was
the Granderson deal.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Granderson goes over to the Yankees.
And becomes a fucking hitting machine.
Yes. And the Diamondbacks got Ian Kennedy and Edwin Jackson.
Not a bad trade for any of them.
Yeah.
Any of them. I know a lot of Tigers fans were heartbroken when Granderson left, and no one could have foreseen him hitting 40 50 home runs.
Yeah.
And
to me, the Tigers win that trade.
Oh, hands down.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't even think there's
pretty much you could you plug in Austin Jackson in for Granderson. You trade a left-handed bat for a right-handed bat.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, Jackson was a better bat.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember right, Granderson couldn't hit right-handed pitching at all.
No.
So
I couldn't hit left-handed pitching.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and the Diamondbacks are just like, oh, here's these two kids just to throw in.
Yeah,
and I mean, granted, Daniel Schlereth came up and had a couple cups of coffee, never really panned out. But yeah, when you get a Scherzer out of that deal, like I said, he was essentially a throw-in.
He was the throw-in. I mean, look at for the Tigers, the trade, trading David Price.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be Daniel Norris was the guy, and Matthew Boyd was the throw-in.
Yep.
Well, now it's the other way around. Matthew Boyd's the best pitcher the Tigers have, and Norris still hasn't found his way in Detroit, and he's running out of time.
Unfortunately, you're right. I want that kid to succeed so much.
Yeah.
Because he has all the stuff. He's left-handed, extremely athletic. It's what you want in a pitcher.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is it's not anything physical. It's mental.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, you're right. It is running out. I'm a fan of his 100%. And for whatever reason, he just seems like that. He's the type of kid you want to get behind, and you just wish the best for him.
And it's crazy that these same three teams got together a couple years later to make another 3-team trade. And that was where Didi goes to the Yankees from the Diamondbacks, and the Tigers send Robbie Ray to the Diamondbacks, and the Tigers receive Shane Green and all that. And Shane Green started his time with Detroit as a starter and had some pretty promising games starting for them. Had a hard time with command for a long time and could not throw his breaking ball for a strike.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that rotation that they had was already pretty stellar.
Yeah. So
it was probably pretty difficult to meander your way through that. But yeah, who would have ever thought that? And Detroit's history with trading with the Yankees for pitching has been always awful. Always. Jabba sucked. Phil Koch, had
his moments.
Half the time sucked. The other half was satisfactory.
Yeah.
And then they do the Shane Green. I'm like, oh man, but no, his first, like, he had some very amazing starts, and then started to suck. And I'm like, oh come on, will you stop trading pitchers or getting pitchers from the fucking Yankees?
Yeah,
there's obviously a reason they're okay with getting rid of you. But yeah, and big, and that when you're that young, that can't be an easy transition, because hardly any pitcher, when you start pitching when you're 9, 10, 12 years old, I want to be in the bullpen. We all want to be fucking starters.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I wanted to be a starter. But when you're that young and you make that transition as easy and seamless as he did, kudos. Because that has to have, you got to check your ego at the door at that point. Either do I want to keep playing this game that I love in a position I don't want to, or do I just hang it up? I'm sure money had a lot to do with it too. But no, the Tigers their trade history has been. If you're grading them on like a A to F, I'm giving them a B, B plus maybe.
Yeah. The one that pops out to me as a terrible trade for Detroit was they traded Suarez, who's a Cincinnati Red now, for Alfredo Simon. And Simon was never... I mean, he win some games in Detroit? Yeah, but he was never very good. And now you look at what Suarez is doing. As now, if you would have asked me back then, did I ever see Suarez becoming the type of player that he is today? Absolutely not. I mean, he has...
Pretty sure only his mom thought that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So that's the one trade that really pops out to me like, oh holy shit.
Right? All right, well, let's... we're going to tease you guys. Give a little tickle. I just want to mention some upcoming dates. Let's get everyone fucking psyched. Let's get stoked. Because we had I caught a little bit of this, but was so bored that I changed it. Was the Hall of Fame game. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I watched maybe 5 minutes of that and turned that shit off.
There's about nothing I hate more than preseason football.
Yes. And, give me the week 3 preseason game, and then I'll watch a little bit. But by the time it's done, I'm like, whatever. Just give me the real shit.
Yeah.
Stop teasing me. Give me the real shit.
And by the time I draft my fantasy team, I'm like, I don't want to see any of you guys out there. Right now.
No, not at all.
I'm not getting points for fantasy rushing yards. So.
So yeah, we are August 8th. Is the next string of preseason games starts, and probably the moment I'm more excited about is Saturday, August 24th.
Oh, college football. First
college game of 2019. And it's actually a pretty good game. Miami at Florida. You know, it's not like Alabama against Marcellus High School, you know. And to have kind of a relevant, I know both of them they're not the powerhouses that they used to be, but they're about on even playing field. They're natural rivals, so fuck it, let's go. Let's get the season started. And then we go from the 24th to the 30th. Michigan State is hosting Tulsa. Way to get a really, really cool first game there, Sparty.
Well, that's about what every team does, though. I mean, I look at what Michigan's doing in their opener. Fuck.
Yeah, and Michigan's I have one more in here. Saturday the 31st, Western Michigan opens up hosting Monmouth, and Michigan opens up hosting Middle Tennessee. Not left Tennessee, not right Tennessee, but Middle Tennessee.
Middle Tennessee. I will be there.
Awesome.
I will be there that day.
Awesome. And then we, for whatever reason, Notre Dame isn't kicking off until September 2nd, and it's an away game at Louisville. So that's an odd one to me. I was kind of like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. So I was looking down, that August 31st. I'm like, all right, here's Michigan. Where's Michigan State? Where's Notre Dame? What the hell is going on? I had to go to their website and like, oh, September 2nd. It's a Monday.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Leave it to Notre Dame to do something fucking weird like that, though.
We got to shake shit up. And so yeah, we're telling you this because probably next week we're gonna deep dive into some college football, and because we're gonna do college before we do pros because college starts a little earlier. And I'm gonna be making some calls, and hopefully we can get some of the local coaches to come join us. So yeah, coaches, keep your ears out, eyes and ears. I might be getting a hold of you, so hopefully we can get one or two of them in here before the high school season kicks off as well. So stay tuned for that. Fantasy football update. Thank you for the 3 that have donated your money to me. I appreciate it. But yeah, keep that up. I did a whole video on it, and the 3 that have, it's kind of shocked. First couple days, everyone jumped on it. So let's try not to wait until D-Day, the deadline, so we can kind of plan this a little bit out. Because I'd really hate to have like 13 people and they all pay like an hour before, where it doesn't really give us a whole lot of time to
plan plan out what's going on.
And reach out to other people, be like, hey, we're starting another league. I know you didn't get in it. Do you want in this one? So everyone can have a chance to play, and everyone can donate their money to me. I know we started the show off with the Motter outing, but let's plug the Fairway Frolic Challenge, and that is the 25th, correct? It's a Sunday?
Yep. It's
a Sunday, so I will again reshare the link to that. Again, out at Pineview, and Don and everyone else who puts that on always does an amazing job with that outing. So, yes. I will. Unfortunately, we will not be running the 2K studs foursome, but I'm sure you will see at least probably all four of us. I'm sure Christian will play with some.
Yeah, I think he'll be out there.
Isn't Christian
pretty much everybody that's in?
Isn't Christian playing with Chell and Josh?
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah, so
I think you're right.
And Jake and I are playing, and I know you're playing with your dad, aren't you?
Yep.
So you will see all four of us out there, but we won't be playing together. So ultimately, maybe we can get some side bets between each other. So
yeah, that's a very, very good golf outing. I mean, I get it. It's a Sunday, and that's kind of a little bit of a. I had a little chat with Mr. Price. I think it was back during the Wildcat Open, actually, and I was chatting with him about that, and I was basically telling him, hey, this needs to be a Saturday event, because most people that play in this, they need the day to kind of gather their thoughts, get everything, pick your shit up and get ready for work Monday morning. But no, that's just for the Marcellus Athletic Boosters. They do a great job with everything sports related that goes on in that school, and they do a superb job with everything that they do for that golf outing. Not only with setting you up with the golf all day and the meal and all that, but some of the prizes and the raffles, and they have the $10,000 putt every year, and it's not just about golf that day. It's about, they have tons of events for if you're not the best golf team out there. There's also a lot of other things that you can look forward to with that. So
yeah, because they give prizes like 1st through 5, and then like the 5th,
like the
10th.
15th.
Yeah,
the team that finishes in 15th normally gets something.
Yeah.
And they do a like a pink ball, and you have to keep changing that ball around the entire round. And if you bring that ball in, and you still have it, then they do a raffle with that, and the raffle wins a prize. I think it's a money prize on that. So I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to win different events.
The last time I played out there and they did the pink ball, my team's pink ball lasted one shot, and guess who teed that one up? Me. We looked for probably 15 minutes for this fucking pink ball, and even if the way, and that was just a very good summary or preview of what was to happen the rest of that day. So it wasn't just because it was pink; it was just because I hit it, and not only I hit it, but all the dudes I was with, we didn't hit it very well. So we hit them frequently, as the golf community likes to say.
Get your money's worth.
Exactly. All right. Well, yeah, we're coming to you guys on Sunday because, like I said, we did the golf outing yesterday. I had my softball season's coming to a close. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have enough interest to do fall ball, which opens up maybe you and I can hit the links after work one day, and maybe that'll open up something. So we ultimately don't have another Wildcat or Motter Open scoring streak. So, but yeah, we have a doubleheader next Friday and then playoffs. So
it's so hard to believe that we're in August already. Like, it just seems like this summer has absolutely flew by. I got like 3 weeks and my kids will be back off to school, which I'm sure my wife is very happy about. She holds it down there while I'm out at work all day, so I know that very stressful times, and she's probably really, really ready for the school year to start. But
I'm sure most parents are.
Yeah, for me though, I'm like, man, where the hell did this summer go?
Yeah, amen to that. So yeah, hopefully, like I said, once softball comes off the books, because normally our summer ball we usually play on Friday, the fall ball we play on Wednesday. So maybe a couple Wednesdays, me and you can get out and hit the links and destroy some golf balls and some trees and everything else that comes in my way. Not necessarily your way, but my way. And but yeah, anything to add there, Mr. 2Ks?
No, sir.
All right. Well, 2K crew, make it a great week, guys and gals. I will keep, like I said, let's fill this first fantasy football league as quick as we can. The only knock that I've gotten about the draft day and time is, which I didn't even think about, was high school football. It's going at that point.
That's a good point.
So
that's a very good point. I didn't think about that either.
Yeah, and Jeremy's the one that brought it up, and ultimately Jeremy's still playing with us. So, but like I said in the live video, the reason we went with Friday was that weekend, the Labor Day weekend, is usually jam-packed with fantasy drafts. So we wanted to make it as accessible as we could for everybody. But unfortunately, it's one of those things where ultimately you're not going to make everyone happy. So
I could be wrong on this, but we still should be we should still be doing this draft before the football season actually starts, as far as games, I think, because don't they always start?
I have no idea. Jeremy's down in Indiana.
Oh, okay. So that makes that might be different there. I want to say in Michigan, no. It's the
after Labor Day,
Thursday or Friday there before Labor Day is when they start their season. Basically, they start theirs right, and then that weekend college football kicks off. It's normally how it's been, and a lot of times the first games of the season they'll play on Thursday instead of a Friday. But
I just thought I'd throw that out there. So maybe that they say one of the traits of a good salesman is to not wait for the objections, throw them out there, and so it's easier to overcome. So that was one of those, and like I said, that was the only issue that anyone's brought up. So
it sounds to me like he's just scared to lose money.
It could be, but I got to give it to him though. He even some of the tournament challenge. All the years I ran it at Drop Anchor, pretty much anything it does that has to do with money and fantasy, Jeremy's been there the whole time. So, well, all right, 2K crew, we're gonna get out of here at that. We're about an hour and 15 minutes, so I think we've taken up enough of your time. Have a great week. Let's get this fantasy football league filled. I hope to see all your smiling faces out there at the Frolic Challenge. And I guarantee you'll hear from us at least a couple more times before then. So, as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.